Hi, this is Kylie Koo. Welcome to my studio. So this video is for the Life Documented project, Life Documented 2019, for which there is a Facebook group and a blog, and I will leave the links to both below. And I'm so pleased that they've asked me to do this video in January, and I think it's for week 5. So if you're from the group, then I hope you'll enjoy this. And the prompt is a 40-minute timed piece. So I'm just going to start by showing you the materials that I'm going to be using, just in case you want to kind of do this along with me. So I've obviously got my journal. I've got some pieces of old music paper and dictionary pages, but any old paper would do. I had some scraps here, but I don't actually use them in the end. I've got a heat tool. I've got some ink pads. I've just grabbed a whole load of stuff. I've got one main ink stamp, a piece of punchinella, a piece of bubble wrap, a sponge. I don't think I use that in the end. So just various things that I might use on this page. I've grabbed a few colours that are calling to me today, and a piece of washi tape, though I do end up using different washi tape, a glue stick, and some brushes, pens, pencil, oh yes, and one of the things I'm going to incorporate is an embellishment. So, you know, if you have an embellishment or an image or even a photograph that you could include, that would be good. Now, one of the things I want to also do is to include a kind of tip-in. Nearly forgot the name of that. So I'm going to tip something in. So you could use something as simple as a tag, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to jump further forward into my journal, and I'm actually just going to tear a piece off one of the pages. Now, okay, it means when I get into it further on, I've got a half page, but that's okay. I can do something interesting with that at the time. So I'm just going to tear this page down, just using my ruler to act as a guide for that. Now, the video, the main piece, will be timed at 40 minutes. So as I say, if you want to kind of pause the video now, get some things together, you could art along with me, or you can watch this and then do it at your own time. It's entirely up to you. So let's get started. I'm just going to start by using my washi tape to tip in this little flap to my pages, and well, the purpose for that will become clear shortly. Now, I've got this video on normal speed because, as I say, if you wanted to art along with me, you will know that this is actually going to take 40 minutes. So the theme for this month, if I didn't say already, is just about showing up to your art. And I want to take you through a kind of little process in a way, and a little, just to give you a few prompts to think about what it is you get from your art and how good it is to show up. So you'll see I'm struggling a little bit there just to get that into place, but you know, I'm not going to worry about it. I've got 40 minutes, and you know, 40 minutes can actually seem quite a long time sometimes to do art. Sometimes I have only a few minutes, and it's good to be able to sit down and do a 5-minute page, a 10-minute page, and sometimes 40 minutes seems a luxury. So you know, if you've turned up, if you've showed up to actually do 40 minutes, then you know, well done. It's good. So I've got that in place. I will tidy up the washi tape later because I'm now just itching to get started. So all I'm doing is taking a pen. This is just a sepia pen. I'm kind of into the sepia at the moment, and I'm just writing the word relax here. And I'm going to invite you, as we go through the first stages of creating this page, be it in your journal, in your diary, in your planner, whatever it is you're using. But as you create your page, just to think about how you might relax into your art. And all I'm going to do is to take these music pages and dictionary pages and just start to stick some down. Now you would see me at the beginning, I lit a small tea candle, I had my cup of tea, and I've kind of created that as a little kind of way to ease me into my art. It's a way of kind of setting the scene for me. You know, it's the sort of thing, if you do it often enough, as soon as you do that, your brain starts to recognise that this is art time now, or craft time, whatever it is you're doing. So, you know, I have that little ritual that I try and do most of the time. If I'm only sitting down to do 5 minutes of art, I probably wouldn't do that because it would take me just about as long to light the candle. But I like to get the kind of ambience right in the studio. So I'll light my candle and I'll have my tea. So all I'm doing now is to take some of those pages and I'm simply going to glue them down with a glue stick. And you'll see that I'm not rushing here. I'm just taking my time, and this is a big thing for me nowadays, is just taking my time. Okay, sometimes I do need to work a bit more quickly. You know, if I want to do a quick warm-up page, I will do something and work a little bit faster. But when I've got 40 minutes, then I want to kind of savour each moment. I want to savour each thing that I'm putting down on the page. And what I want to do is to make sure that some of that paper goes underneath the flap and also that a part goes on top of the flap. What I'm really trying to do is to let the flap integrate into the page so that it would be hard to actually see that it's there once it's completed. And the reason for that being, we're going to be doing some hidden journaling on the back of the page. Now obviously you could do other hidden journaling and cover it up if you wanted, but this is just an easy way to do that hidden journaling, and with the tip in, it just adds a bit of interest to the page. So if you're working along with me, we're now about 5 minutes into the process. So we have plenty of time left. We're just going to enjoy it. I've just used glue stick here, but obviously you could also use a matte medium, a PVA, whatever, but the glue stick means that it will dry quicker. So now all I'm going to do is take my pencil, and I'm just going to take the pencil and I'm just going to move back and forward across the page. This is just another way to ease myself in. I'm not thinking about anything, and I'm not even thinking about creating a nice page or a pretty page here. I'm just thinking about getting into my art, showing up. If it turns out nice, fair enough. If it doesn't, it's about enjoying the process. It's about showing up and just seeing where it takes me. So I'm now going to take that big stamp and this sepia ink pad. As I say, I'm very into sepia at the moment. And I'm just going to start stamping across the page. Now it will stamp a bit unevenly in places because of the paper that's on it, but that's okay, because I guess if there's anything that I'm looking for in this page, it is a kind of distressed look. So you'll see here I'm stamping it across both the flap in its closed position and the page, and then I'm just going to lift the flap and see if I can get it kind of stamped so that whether it's open or closed, you're getting basically the same image there. So if you're thinking about anything just now, just be thinking about how you might relax into your art. So I'm now going to take some titanium white, Alternatively, you could use gesso, you could use a white craft paint. All I'm going to do is put a bit of paint across this just to knock it into the background. It helps to kind of blend the paper in a bit, but also just to kind of knock it into the background a little bit. Now, I should have said at the start, you know, I'm showing you the supplies I'm using. Just you use whatever you've got. This is more just about the process of getting this page done. And again, just not rushing, just enjoying the contact with the paper, the contact with the paint. Obviously, you don't have to use your fingers. It's just something that I often do. But at this point, I actually get a dry paintbrush. There's no water on it. And I'm just going to kind of fan that paint out a bit. Just dry brushing it out. I don't want it too thick. I will need to spend some time using my heat tool to dry things, but I don't want to be, you know, spending 10 minutes at a time to do that. So I'm putting the paint on fairly thin so that it will dry quite quickly. And again, I did it on the other side of the flap, just so that it will blend in. So taking my heat tool now and just giving that a bit of a dry. And I've left the time spent drying as well, because that is a part of our process. You know, if I was taking that out, then I wouldn't be doing the 40 minutes. Or I wouldn't be showing you the 40 minutes. So that's about dry. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pen, and I invite you to do the same. And just under that heading of relax, just write down a few things that you might do as a kind of routine, a kind of ritual, just something that might help set the ambience to allow you to create in a kind of positive environment. And I know for all of us it's different. Some have a dedicated room, some are on the edge of the kitchen table, but wherever you are, you want to make it so that you can enjoy your art. So the next word I'm going to write down is reflect. And I'd put down under relax soft music. Sometimes I put some quiet music on in the background. Don't always do that, because a lot of the time I just like the quiet. I like listening to the birds outside. That's my kind of music. But sometimes, if I'm in the mood, I'll put on a little bit of soft and quiet music. So I'm now taking this turquoise colour, and I'm just going to start to add some of this to the page. And again, I'm just going to dry brush it on. I'm not looking for it to be too thick. So I'm just taking a little and spreading it out. And I'll just keep adding this until the point where I feel it's enough. It's the kind of thing you can never say when is enough. You just feel that yourself. And again, I'm going to put some on the outside flap. Just going to dry it. Just want to make sure that when I do the outside flap, that the colour isn't sticking to the bit when I'm doing the journaling, although it really wouldn't matter if a little bit of colour went on that. And again, just pulling it over from the tip in across to the main page, just so there's a kind of coherence between the two, even with the brush strokes going across the two. I'm now going to take a second colour. This is a lime yellow. I just always feel that the turquoise and this lime yellow go well together. At the moment, they're two of my favourite colours. And I'm just going to start applying that, sometimes in the kind of white spaces and at other times over the turquoise. And it will mix a little bit with the turquoise, but that's fine, it just creates added interest, making it a bit more green than the yellow green. And again, just keeping that brush dry. I didn't clean it off in between. And again, doing it on the outside of the tip-in. But you know, you choose whatever colours you want. You could do this with watercolours rather than acrylics. Just use whatever you have. And again, giving it a dry. So during this bit, I'm asking you, or I invite you anyway, to reflect on what it is you get from your art. What do you get from your craft? When you show up, what is it you get from it? It could be any number of things, from just basic enjoyment to, as I go on to say, it is very much a part of my self-care. So as you're doing this bit, just reflect on what it is you get from showing up and making art. So just going to take this piece of bubble wrap and this ink pad, and I'm just going to stamp with the bubble wrap onto the page. Again, making sure that gets some onto the flap. Not rushing it, just very much enjoying sitting here and creating. And that colour, by the way, was Twilight, and I think this one is Peacock, this pad. And what I'm going to do this time is just to take that small piece of Punchinella and a cosmetic sponge that's already well used, and I'm just going to dab some of that through. Now these are very similar colours to what's already down there, but because it's quite shiny, it will kind of show up, especially when the light hits it. At this point, we're just over 15 minutes into the process, so just under 25 minutes still to go. And already we've got quite a lot down on the page. So just showing you there how you can see where the stamping is. So I'm now taking this Oriental Violet, which is a transparent paint. Again, I just feel this colour fits in with the others. And what I'm going to do is try and create a bit of drippage. So I'm taking a wet paintbrush, putting a little bit of water onto the page there, and now I'm just going to take some little bits of the paint and pop it on. Then I'm going to wet this and try and get some drippage. Now the other thing you could do, as I do here, is I get my spray bottle and start to spray it. But I don't know, I didn't get the drippage that I was kind of expecting. However, we work with what we have. I try it a bit more, but it's just really not happening as I expected it to. But I actually liked the way it turned out in the end. So I keep trying to do the drippage, but then I start to see the way that it's kind of sitting at the top of the page, and I think I actually quite like that, so I'm not going to keep going with the drippage. I'm just going to spread this about a little bit. My brush is wet, it's just going to spread it. And again, filling in one or two of those kind of white gaps, but also letting it come down and over the other colours. Just playing here. Sometimes, you know, I'll go for an effect and it doesn't work out, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes the way it turns out is better than it might have been had it worked out as I'd intended. So just dabbing up some of the excess water there and paint with that page, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a dry at this point. And at this stage I'm looking at that colour and thinking, I really like this. And in a moment you'll see me do the same at the bottom of the page. I had some of that colour there, just softening it with the water and spreading it a little. And again, making sure that it gets some on the front of the tip in. So again, just trying to dab up the excess kind of water with that, but give it a bit of a dry. Still just keeping it real with the drying time here. And you know, we are about 20 minutes into the process now, so still around 20 minutes to go. So I put the heat gun down, and at this point I decide that it's time to write a bit about reflect. So I've been reflecting on what it is I get from my art, why it is I show up to it, and you know, it is part of my self-care. And undoubtedly I do feel better for doing it. If for any reason I can't art for a few days, I can make me feel bad. You know, I long for it, I yearn for it. So once you've written that down, the next word here is renew. So we've had relax, reflect, and now we're going to think about renew. And by renew, I mean renewing your commitment to showing up to your art. Now, if you're someone that's already been showing up and you show up on a regular basis, you might say, well, why do I need to do this? My intention is that this page is here for you to look back on. So if there's a point where you are feeling like not showing up, and there can be many reasons for not showing up, but if you're feeling less likely to, then you've written down here your commitment to it, you know, what you get from your art and also your commitment to it. So I hope that this would stand you in good stead for those times where, for whatever reason, you just don't feel like showing up. And for those of you that are perhaps already in that place where, you know, you find it difficult to show up on a regular basis, I hope also that by writing down why you art, how you might create a nice ambience for yourself and your commitment to it, then I hope also that that will give you something that you can then say, yes, this is important to me. So I've just taken that stamp again. I just want to bring that back to the fore a little bit. Obviously, the more layers we add, the more that some of the things will disappear into the background. So I just wanted to bring that forward. So I'm now just going to take some black paint and some white paint. Just put it onto my palette here, which just happens to be a mini jelly plate. It was a thing that I had to hand. And I'm just going to do some sort of speckles and splatters, just to add a bit of interest. Again, it's just building up the layers. We can build layers if we've only got 5 minutes, but when you've got 40 minutes, you can really start to build the layers up. So just adding some water to that. And for anybody who uses this technique already, you will know it can be a messy technique, but it's worth it. So initially some black splatters, and making sure it goes underneath the flap as well as on top of it. Then just cleaning off my brush, and I'm going to add some white splatters as well. Now what I will do is I will dry the black splatters off just a little bit, because otherwise, as I've found before, I end up making grey. And at this stage we're about 30 minutes in and 15 left to go. So here I go with the white now. I'm tapping it a bit more vigorously here, so there's more of the white going down. And you'll see in a moment that it's all over my hands and arms, and it was down the front of my shirt and numerous other places. So now just giving that a dry before I go on to the next thing. So it's taking me a little while to dry it at this stage, and in a moment what I'll go and do is to get a piece of kitchen towel. If I'd had kitchen towel immediately to hand, I would have used it already, but I was trying not to have to get up and wander off for it, but in the end I thought it's going to be the best thing, otherwise this is going to take a while to dry. So I just use that to get the remaining pieces of water and wet paint. So I'm going to go back and just add a bit more bubble wrap with the sepia ink. Just a few little bits here and there. Just all about adding interest and a depth of layers to the page. So just going back and taking my big piece of graphite, you could use a pencil, and just again taking it across the page, almost creating a sketchy border here, making sure that I go both on top of the flap and underneath it, and just pulling that round. Sometimes if I'm sitting wondering where to go next, I will just do something like that, and it keeps it moving, it keeps the momentum going. So I decide at this point that it's time to add a focal point, and I've just taken these paper flowers. I'm just going to use some of these, but you could use an image from a magazine, you could use some sort of embellishment, you could use a photograph. Really just to give a kind of focal point. So I have these in two kind of colours that go reasonably well with my background. And I'm going to take two of the large ones and then one of the smaller ones. And I decide that I want one to actually be, in fact, end up with a large one and a small one attached to the flap, because it will help hold the flap in place a little bit, but it also means that when I lift the flap, those are part of it and one of the others is left on the page. Again, just all about creating some interest. Now I decide that the glue stick probably won't stick these down. It might, but it might just take a little bit longer to dry, so I just use some fabric glue. And just rearranging those, trying to give those two a little bit of overlap. And I'm quite happy with the way that those are sticking. So now under 10 minutes left, but the page is starting to come together. So I'm going to add a quote to the page at this point. And the quote is from Brené Brown, and it's, "Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Now, it might be that you don't want to be seen by others, you don't want your art to be seen by others, but I think part of this is about showing up for ourselves and being seen to ourselves, showing ourselves what we can create. So I just used a little bit of scrap paper for that, and all I'm going to do is just to tear around it, just so I don't have hard edges on it. Now, I think it was in my head when I was tearing to actually take the sepia pad and go round it, but I didn't. And again, you know, doesn't matter, one of those things. I was thinking the bit of paper was a bit too white looking, but something that happened was that when I was gluing it there, it actually picked up some of the colour from underneath, so I was quite pleased at that. And there you'll see, I'm going back in and just trying to pick up some of what was there. And just looking at where I want to balance it, where I want to get it, just to kind of balance it with the rest of the page. And again, I just take my graphite and just go round it. This wasn't just about edging it, it was almost about signifying the importance of it for me by just going round and round. So at that point, just over 5 minutes left to go. So I'm now taking a piece of charcoal, sepia charcoal. I just had that lying to hand and I thought I'll go round the edge with that a bit. Going round the coat. And just kind of smudging it just a little bit with my fingers. So I'm now taking this iridescent gold because there was little bits of gold on the flowers and I just want to bring a bit of that into the page as well. And again, just using my fingers, though you could use a dry brush for this. Spreading it quite thinly and just kind of moving it around. It sits nicely on top of the other paint. Again, this just adds another layer and some more interest to it. And I think at the end of the day just gives it a little bit of pop. So now, under Renew, I invite you to write your commitment to yourself, to show up. And I'm just writing this very briefly. You could write as much as you want, you could add more into this. I'm just putting down a few main points. And so when I look back at this in future, I'll see what I've said about what I can do to relax into my art, what I came up with when I reflected on why I create art, and also at my renewed commitment to myself. So in just the last few minutes, I'm just going to tidy up that washi tape where there's an overhang. And this would be the point now just to add one or two finishing touches, perhaps making some marks. I've just taken my Sharpie marker and I'm just going to put a few dots on it. And apologies, I'm slightly off the screen at the bottom there. Just a few dots here and there, again, just adds little bits of interest. I come back to that coat again and I go round it again. I think I was really trying to make this stand out for myself, really highlighting the importance of that statement for myself. Trying to do some splatters, but it wasn't working. These pens will flood when you don't want them to, and when you do want them to, they don't. That's just the way it goes. So just doing a few more dots over the page. And just making sure that I don't go on to smudge them, I just give it a final dry, checking that the flowers are in place. In the final minute, I just go over the statement just to make it stand out a little bit more. And our 40 minutes is up. And so I have my finished page, and during the creation of it I've thought about how I would relax into my art. I've reflected on why I do my art, and I've renewed my commitment to my art. So I hope you've enjoyed this process, and I hope you enjoy the page that you've created. So thanks again to those in Life Documented for asking me to participate in this project. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this, and I wish you all well for 2019, and hope to see you again in the Facebook group and on the blog. And if you're not in those groups and would like to join, I am sure that others would be more than happy to see you there. As I say, the links will be all below. So thanks for showing up and watching this video, and I hope you've created along with me. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.